Bengal, 1770. The monsoon comes late and leaves early. Markets close at noon. Lines form where there is nothing to buy. Granaries sit dark behind guards who answer to shareholders. Famine is not only drought. Famine is a decision. A new ruler has entered history. It does not sit on a throne. It prints dividends. It signs treaties like a king, keeps ledgers like a merchant, and fields an army larger than most countries. It is called a company. From a counting house on a London lane to a battlefield in the tropics, from a charter sealed with wax to bayonets paid for by credit. This is the story of the East India Company, how it rose, how it fed on power, and what its shadow still means for us. London, the last day of the year 1600. A royal charter unrolls on a table. The words grant the Governor and Company of Merchants of London, trading into the East Indies, the right to trade beyond the Cape of Good Hope. Monopoly in exchange for duty and loyalty, a bargain the Crown believes it can control. The charter creates something new, a joint stock venture that outlives its founders. Investors pool money, risk spreads, ownership becomes pieces of paper that can be sold. No king, no duke, just a board, a governor, and the promise of profit. Ships depart, the Dragon, the Hector, hulls packed with bullion and hope. They return with pepper, cotton, indigo, later tea and opium. The company learns 3 lessons early. Monopolies need friends at court, forts at sea, and lawyers on land. At first, the Mughal Empire is a world unto itself. The company requests farmhands, imperial permits, to trade. It bows, bargains, pays, and prospers. Merchants still. Rulers, not yet. But monopolies are jealous creatures. Rivals appear, Portuguese, Dutch, French. Each plants a flag on a shoreline and calls it policy. On maps, the coasts look like lace. On ledgers, they look like blood. A warehouse is a patient thing. A fort is not. The company builds both. It hires guards, then regiments. It borrows from local bankers, shroffs and banias, and repays them with the spoils of contracts enforced at cannon point. The colors on the flag do not change. The meaning of the flag does. In London, directors sip coffee and argue interest rates. In Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta, factors learn that diplomacy backed by artillery is faster than petitions carried by couriers. The line between protection and policy dissolves in the heat. France arrives with a sharper sword. Dupleix and Bussy in the south. The 7 Years' War makes Europe a fuse, and India a powder room. Out of the smoke steps a man whose name will become a scandal and a system. Robert Clive. Clive is not a philosopher of empire. He is a gambler who learns the table. He sees that Indian politics are not a wall, but a door. Princes quarrel, ministers scheme, accountants keep secrets in invisible ink. Clive learns to read it. On the plain of Plassey, mango groves cast short shadows. The Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, commands more men and more guns. The company commands fewer, but it commands the contract. Clive has made a promise to Mir Jafar, a commander who dreams of replacing his master. The promise is simple. Betray today, rule tomorrow. The coin is bribes, the seal is secrecy, the witness is ambition. The firing begins. The air fills with powder and rumor. At the moment of decision, Mir Jafar's troops advance, then halt. Silence, where there should be thunder. Clive's small force presses forward. The Nawab flees, his treasury does not. Plassey is not a great set piece of tactics. It is the price of information paid in advance. After the victory, gifts flow like rivers into private pockets. Jewels, cash, land. Nabobs, company men returning home, display sudden wealth that smells of monsoon and musk. London sniffs scandal and calls it style. But Plassey buys more than pearls. It buys leverage. With one battle, the company learns it can shape who rules Bengal and bill the cost to Bengal itself. In 1765, on the banks of the Ganges, the company receives the Diwani, the right to collect tax in Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. Not sovereignty, the lawyers insist, just revenue. A neat word, just. The dual government that follows is a hall of mirrors. Indian officials nominally rule. Company agents truly decide. Revenue farming spreads. Tax rights auctioned to the highest bidder who squeezes the hardest. Credit networks that once smoothed trade seize up. Grain moves, but not to markets where the poor can buy it. Then the rains falter. The Bengal famine of 1770 is not one season, but a system. Villages empty. Fields go brown. Estimates speak in fractions. A quarter, perhaps a third, of the population gone. Even as bodies are carried past, exports rise. Indigo ships, silk ships, dividends sail. Did the company cause the famine? No storm answers to a board, but a famine is multiplied by policy. Taxes were not cut, granaries were not opened, speculation was not restrained. If the weather began the fire, the company stacked the kindling. After the famine, the directors confess only to errors of regulation. In London, shares wobble. In India, lives do not wobble, they end. A company that can conquer a province can also mismanage a balance sheet. By 1772, debt towers over the company's books. The same parliament that granted monopoly faces a choice. Let the market decide, or keep the empire that now pays British customs and wages. Parliament chooses empire. The Tea Act of 1773 is drafted to rescue company profits by letting it dump surplus tea in America at a lower price, cutting out colonial merchants. The act is a London solution to a global problem. In Boston Harbor, colonists answer with salt water. Tea chests splash. A protest against monopoly becomes a revolution against a king. At home, another law arrives, the Regulating Act of 1773. It tries to leash the company, creates a Governor-General and a Supreme Court at Calcutta. In theory, private rule will now answer to public law. In practice, law and profit learn to share a desk. Warren Hastings takes office as the first Governor-General. He is industrious, intelligent, and convinced that ruling India means understanding it, while refusing to be ruled by it. He streamlines taxes, plays princes off against each other, and raises funds by arrangements that sound lawful and look like exactions. Back in Britain, a parliamentarian watches with a pen like a sword. Edmund Burke believes empire requires a conscience. He studies depositions, letters, whispers. He argues that there is no geographical morality. What is wrong in London is wrong in Lucknow. Hastings is impeached. The first great imperial trial. Years of testimony. Charges of extortion, oppression, illicit gifts. He defends himself as a servant of necessity in a dangerous land. The verdict will eventually acquit him. The history will not. The impeachment matters because it names the problem. Can a private corporation exercise public power without becoming a machine of corruption? The answer is staged as theatre, argued as law, and paid for in taxes and lives. Oversight increases, so does empire. Pitt's India Act strengthens government control but leaves the company's engine humming. The governors still make war. The directors still count. The army grows, sepoy regiments drilled to a European beat. On the Deccan Plateau, the Mysore state under Tipu Sultan resists with rockets and resolve. In the west, the Maratha Confederacy maneuvers. Treaties are signed, then sharpened, loans are offered, then weaponized. The company learns a durable trick: make a prince into a debtor, then make the debt into policy. War provides prizes, indemnities, territory, monopoly rights. Opium from Bengal flows toward the China trade. Land revenue finances railways that move troops faster than petitions can travel. Every mile of track is a line of credit. Every telegraph pole is a claim. In London, the company appears constitutional. In India, it behaves like a fiscal military state, a government whose budget balances when its armies win. The 19th century wraps iron around the subcontinent. Trains and telegraphs promise speed, order, modernity. But whose order? Whose modernity? Lord Dalhousie arrives with a doctrine that sounds legal and feels like hunger, the doctrine of lapse. If a ruler dies without a natural heir, his kingdom lapses to company control. Ancient adoption customs are declared invalid by modern convenience. Satara, Jhansi, Nagpur, map colors change like seasons, roads improve, revenues rise, resentment ripens. Dalhousie is not a cartoon villain. He believes in uniform law, efficient administration, and the arithmetic of progress. But arithmetic can be cruel. A uniform rule applied to uneven histories often performs as force. The emblem of modernization, railways, moves grain swiftly to ports, and troops swiftly to provinces that object. It begins in barracks, with cartridges rumored to be greased with animal fat, offensive to Hindu and Muslim soldiers alike. But 1857 is not only about cartridges, it is about pay, promotion, and pride. It is about princes stripped of powers, landholders pressed by revenue demand, artisans breaking under imported cloth. Sepoys mutiny, cities rise. Delhi becomes a symbol, Lucknow a siege, Kanpur a catastrophe. Rebels fight for many visions: restoration of Mughal prestige, defense of faith, local autonomy. The company answers with organized violence. Villages are punished, leaders hanged, neighborhoods shelled. By 1858, the revolt is crushed. In London, politicians accept a conclusion history has written in fire. Private rule has burned its mandate. The Government of India Act transfers power from the company to the Crown. The company remains on paper until 1874, like a ghost stubborn about its ledger. The world does not pause. Railways keep running. Taxes keep coming. The system changes uniforms. The East India Company dies. Its inventions do not. It popularizes limited liability, profit without total risk. It pioneers regulatory capture. When the regulated write the rules, it proves the power of lobbying, dinners, pamphlets, seats in Parliament. It professionalizes the private army, then calls it public when bills come due. It builds a machine where lawyers, bankers, and brigades speak the same language: interest. Empires do not only rule with crowns, they rule with contracts. Today, we recognize the patterns: monopolies rescued as too big to fail, private losses socialized, public oversight negotiated into comfort. The company's story is not a museum exhibit. It is a manual with missing pages. So, when we ask who governs, we should also ask who invoices. The East India Company once answered both. Remember that, as the next crisis arrives, dressed not as a coup, but as a quarterly report. Empires rise. Power corrupts. We document both.